Hey everyone, it's Mike again, co-founder of Hummingbot, and I wanted to do another session about running a market-making bot using Hummingbot version 2.1. So in the last one, we covered how to install using both Docker and installing from source. So this time around, I wanted to introduce a bit more and actually show you how to run a strategy using Hummingbot. But first, let me touch on a bit on the evolution of how Hummingbot has evolved over time. Because when we first started in 2019, it was basically a fairly simple command line interface tool for running market-making bots. And we also had arbitrage and a few other basic strategies that you could run. And over time, our strategy frameworks have gotten more powerful and sophisticated. And we've also added an application layer with dashboard, and as well as the ability to backtest strategies and deploy multiple instances. So I think today is much more of a full-fledged open source framework that many professional institutions are also now building on top of. So, and we've also seen volumes increase as Hummingbot connectors have slowly become the standard for how exchanges connect to algo trading bots. And so we're seeing a wide range of usage across many different exchanges, anywhere from 40 to up to 100 million per day. And we know that many institutions tend to turn off their connectors after they hit a certain level of volume. What I think Hummingbot 2.0 provides is basically an evolution from the original command line instance, where now you can use the deploy repo to deploy basically a front end, which is dashboard, as well as a back end. And the back end will launch one or more Hummingbot instances. So each of these instances are Docker containers, which can be accessed using the good old CLI. However, the dashboard helps you manage these multiple instances and also visually create configurations and backtest them more easily. And 2.0 also introduces the Quants Lab, which is a set of Jupyter notebooks that help you use the Hummingbot library to fetch data from different exchanges, perform analysis, and then create configurations which can be deployed directly using bots and backend API. And in addition, we're currently in the process of refactoring our DEX middleware, which is Gateway, and we're introducing a new repo that's initially aimed at prototyping a liquidity provision for Solana-based DEXs, but we do envision this to be the successor to Gateway once it is fully developed. So what I want to do today was introduce a bit about how to run a market-making strategy using the old-fashioned way, which is just a simple script, as well as using this new strategy V2 framework. So just in a nutshell, the way the strategy V2 framework works is that in the past, our strategies were defined by one single kind of file, which was either a V1 strategy or a V1 script. But in the strategy V2 framework, we added more components which allow you to build more powerful strategies like a set of Legos. So in the V2 framework, the strategy can be defined at the script layer, but the strategy can define different sub-strategies, which can be defined as different controllers. And each controller can operate on different trading pairs or on different exchanges. So each one is a different market. And so you can imagine, let's say this is a market-making strategy. The market-making strategy can define the strategy that's running on kind of like, trading pair 1, trading pair 2, and then trading pair 3. And then each of these trading pairs is operating essentially its own market-making strategy, managing a set of orders. And then when those orders are filled, the executor is managing each position that's created and managing how that position is managed. whether you're taking profit or stopping loss or whatever. So essentially what this allows you to do is define logic in terms of how each position is managed, how each strategy is applied to different markets, as well as at the holistic kind of strategy level. That this compared to the traditional kind of like approach where you're just defining a single strategy on a single market, and where you have to write all the code associated with managing that position afterwards. I think this is a much more kind of comprehensive approach, and it allows for more expressive strategies with fewer lines of code. Finally, I do want to also call out the fact that we've introduced this concept of a market data provider in the V2 framework. And the market data provider is kind of like a single component that connects to an exchange's historical candles, which is a moving window of data that provides you access to essentially OH, LCV intervals, candles over that time frame. It also provides access to the order book data as well as the trades feeds for a particular exchange. So essentially it's like a one-stop shop for data for a particular market. And so you can use it at both the script level or at the control level. So overall, I hope this kind of provides just a very brief intro to why we built the V2 framework and how it differs from the individual script that we had before. So what to wrap this up, what I wanted to, this is all extended intro to say that what I wanted to do today was show you the difference between running a simple PMM V1 script, which is just a simple script that executes a market making strategy, and then also show you how the same kind of like we can run the same strategy, but with a V2 controller, and how the V2 controller differs from that V1 script. And both will be basically running a pure market making strategy. So note that the V1 script is called Simple PMM, and the V2 controller is called PMM Simple. Clearly, we need to work on the nomenclature here at Hummingbot. But overall, I think the key difference is one is V2, the other one is V1. And I think, as you'll see in the demo that comes next, there's some significant differences and improvements from V1 to V2. All right. Okay, so we'll start by running the simple PMM V1 script before taking a look at V2. So here's the overall structure of how the V1 script works. First, it'll fetch data from the market, which has to be a spot market. And then it'll create a set of orders, buy orders or sell orders. And then after a certain order refresh time, it'll refresh those orders and apply them again using the same bid spread and ask spread that was defined in the configs. So as history, this is a very simple version of our traditional pure market making strategy. And the reason we created the simplified version is because while many people have used that PMM strategy, overall we found that there's many bells and whistles you can add to it. But the best way to approach it is from a developer perspective, start with a very simple base that you can understand. And then you can add, shifting prices or spreads or incorporating some type of external data in some other way. But starting with a simple base is always a good thing. So let's go and run the simple PMM script. And before we do that, we can take a look at the code itself. So if you go to the Hummingbot GitHub over here and the scripts directory, these are the scripts available when you run Hummingbot that are available. We have some other ones here in these other subfolders. And if you want to make them available, you just need to copy them into the base folder. So if we click on simplepmm.py, we can look at the code over here for the script. So I'll make this a little bit bigger. And so basically this is pure Python. And so it should be very easy for anyone with a basic understanding of Python to digest. So overall, the way it works is that here are the parameters. These are the same ones we saw over here. These are essentially the parameter configs for the script. And then once you've defined that, the script will run the onTick method. This is basically the loop that is executed every tick, which by default, Hummingbot is 1 second. So what it essentially does is it creates a list of orders and it places those orders. And if those orders are placed, it will then refresh those orders. It'll cancel them and it'll place them again. So essentially execute the same loop that we saw here. So now let's go ahead and run that in Hummingbot. So here is the installation of Hummingbot that we installed from source in the prior video. You can refer to that if you want to understand how to set it up. But I'll make sure that my conda environment is installed because I am running from source. So I believe it's already installed, which it is. And then after that, I can just run the start command. I'll make this a bit bigger over here. So I've already defined my password, so I can just go ahead and log into the main screen. And as a reminder, last time we added credentials to OKX, both the spot and the perpetual exchanges. So here I can see that I have some amount of WorldCoin and USDT. So let's configure the simple PMM script running on the WorldCoin USDT market on OKX. Now, before we get started, it's always a good idea to take a look at what the market looks like on the exchange itself. So here is that market on KuCoin. I'm sorry, on OKX, and so we can kind of like flip between the two screens like this. And I want to show you because it's important to know what the current price is because we're going to set orders around that price. And after we do so, we want to be able to see those orders on the exchange itself to verify that it's actually working properly. Because ultimately, Hummingbot is simply a tool that allows you to automate a automated process, and you want to make sure that automated process is kind of doing things reliably and regularly before you basically let it off and run for a long time. So right now, the WorldCoin USDT market, the current mid price is 1.983, and it looks like the bid-ask spread, which is the distance between the top bid and the top ask as a percentage of the mid price, looks like it's something like 0.001 or probably like less than 10 basis points. So in here in Hummingbot, let's go ahead and define a configuration first for the simple PMM script, the script. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to define the values here. And here you can see actually the prompts that it'll be asked. Okay, so to do that, we will run the create command and then pass in script config and then pass in the name of the file. So we'll be configuring the simple PMM script. So first, let's define the exchange where the bot will trade. So that's OKX. And then the trading pair where it will place orders is WorldCoin USDT. For the order amount, we want to make sure that the order amount is larger than the minimum order size acceptable to the exchange. Currently, WorldCoin is around $2 US, so let's use 5 WorldCoin or approximately 10 USDT as a base order amount. And then here's where we're defining the bid order spread. This is actually a bit confusing because it's actually not in percentage. This is actually in actually numeric terms. So this is actually 0.01 or 10 basis points. So this is pretty tight. So let's go with 50 basis points, 0.005 instead. So given that this price is at 2, 0.005 or 50 basis points should be around 0.01 in terms of spread. And let's use the same amount for the ask spread as well. And then for order refresh time, we'll keep it at 15 seconds because we want to see the orders refreshing constantly to make sure it's working properly. And we can choose to use either mid price or the last price. Let's use the mid price here for the price type. So, and then finally, we can save the name of the file. I think I've already saved a couple sample files, so I'll call this simple PMM 3. Actually, let's give it a more descriptive name. Let's call it simple PMM OKX WorldCoin USDT. This will help us find it later on. Okay, so now it's saved. And then before we do that, let's just take a look. And I want to show you if we are here and what we just created was a configuration in the conf directory. So here in conf, we can go to scripts. The conf folder is where you save both your encrypted controller keys as well as any configurations for scripts or strategies you might have created. So what we just did now was we just created a configuration for a script, which is saved in the conf scripts folder. As you can see, the one we just here, and we can take a look at the actual file itself. So let's take a look at the file with Vim, and we can see that this is a simple configuration file that defines the values here, and this configuration file is used alongside the simple pmm.py file in order to define essentially a configuration for the script. That makes it reusable in multiple settings. Okay, so now that you understand how the configuration file for V1 Script works, let's go ahead and run that script using Hummingbot. So let's go back, run start again, and we'll enter a password. And this time around, because we've already created the configuration file for the script, we can just go ahead and start that script with start script symbol PMM. And then we can use the --conf flag to say that we want to define a config file and pass in the OKX configuration file that we just defined. So this is where Hummingbot is connecting to the exchange and creating the initial orders. So it looks like it's created them. We can run the status command in order to see what it's doing. So it looks like it's doing what it expected, which is to create orders at a 50 basis point spread, which is basically around 1% total spread from the market. And so it looks like it is kind of doing the right thing here. And we can verify that it's doing the right thing if we look at the exchange itself. So let's take a look at the exchange. And yes, we do see our orders here on the exchange, our buy order and our sell order, as well as over here. So, and we can also visualize our orders on the order book. So every 15 seconds, the bot will refresh these orders and place them at 50 basis points from the mid price. So over here we can see that it's logging those orders, and we can also run status live if we want to see the status of the orders live, and we can see this timer, which should refresh every 15 seconds. So this is a very simple market making script, and hopefully by now you understand how a basic market making script works and you can see the code and be able to customize how it works. But now let's say that you want to really expand this operation and market make across multiple trading pairs, and you also may want to incorporate more features into your bot. For example, let's say for all the orders that are filled, you wanted to handle each one and apply stop loss limits or take profit limits for every filled order so that you're not constantly rebalancing. Another thing you may want to do is you also might want to do some simulations ahead of time and figure out how this strategy might behave against historical data before running it live like this. So because of all these things, this is why we created the strategy v2 framework. So now what I'll show you is how you can run a v2 version of this simple pure market making script, but in a more complex or in a more powerful manner that has the backtesting and the multiple bot deployment features I just mentioned. All right, well, now that the simple PMM script has been running for a while, we can take a look at the history command. Actually, let me stop this since it's still in status live. And as I mentioned, we can run the history command in order to see the history. But because we've been refreshing orders every 15 seconds and 50 basis point spreads is actually pretty wide, we haven't gotten any fills. But if there were, you would see some listed here. But one thing is that we want to make sure that we can actually handle the filled orders, because if we just fill orders like this, we buy, we sell, we buy, we sell. It's likely that over time we'll lose money because we're buying when the market goes down, we're selling whenever the market goes up, and unless we're very lucky and set great spreads, we're probably not going to lose money. So ideally, what we want to do, and this is kind of why we had this concept called hang orders in the original V1 PMM strategy, is to be able to match a filled buy order with a sell order that's going to take profit or stop loss. And we want to match a sell order with corresponding take profit and stop loss buy orders as well. So that's really the motivation behind why we designed this strategy v2 framework, so that we can have these executors that are doing the risk management by setting take profit and stop loss settings for each filled order. So that's why in the v2 framework, you're deploying a controller. A controller is basically the same as a strategy. The strategy is placing orders, and for every filled order, there's an executor that is managing that position. Another side benefit of this is that now this allows us to have the same strategy and have it be runnable on both a spot and a perpetual exchange. Because on a perpetual exchange, you create a position with every filled order, so you need to be able to manage that position afterwards. So let's stop the bot, because we'll be using the same OKX account here, and we don't want to kind of have two bots ideally running on the same account because they might conflict. So we'll exit here, and so recall that in the last installation video, we installed using the Docker method. So if you're unfamiliar with that video, go back and review the installation video to see how you can install Hummingbot dashboard using the deploy repo. But over here, I believe, let's see, we can always take down the bots if it's running with Docker compose down like this. But when, let's say, if it is down, then you can always run the bash setup script in order to get them running up again. So let's run the setup script. And so here, this will also ensure that you're running the most updated images. We are. So that now it's started, and now we can go to localhost 8501 in order to launch the dashboard. So in the last video, we already showed how to add your API keys on the credentials tab, and then also how to inspect the portfolio here. So this is the same view that we saw earlier using the balance command. It looks like the markets has gone up in the intervening hour since I recorded that segment of the video. But we can take a look at our OKX exchange balances, click on the OKX tab, and we can see that we do have, we still have the same amount of PayPay, WorldCoin, and USDT on OKX. So now let's go ahead and generate a configuration for the PMM simple configuration, which is, again, forgive the naming. This is basically a more sophisticated V2 version of the our traditional PMM strategy, which just places orders on both sides of the order book. So we'll be using OKX. Oh, actually, before I mention that, before I go through this, let's walk through the diagram of this PMM simple strategy. So let's see, it looks like this over here, and basically this is basically a more complex version of the PMM V1 script that we ran in the earlier segment. So in that script, recall that it fetched data from a spot market, and then it created orders, and after a certain order refresh time, it would cancel and then replace those orders. Here in the V2 controller, we're defining a similar set of configurations in terms of the exchange, the trading pair. This time we're defining a total amount of assets to be placed, and we're defining that in terms of the quote asset in the trading pair. Because we can run this on both a spot and a perpetual exchange, there's a leverage field you can set. If it's on a spot exchange, it will be ignored. In addition, one feature of this new controller is that you can define multiple order levels, where one order level, you may want to kind of increase the amount of capital as the distance from the mid price increases. And again, we also have a refresh time setting, which defines how often you refresh the orders. But here we call that an executor refresh time because these orders might get converted into executors. So, and if an order is hit on a certain level, then that level will not be replaced by default, and instead it'll wait until the position executor manages the handling of that order before that level is replaced. So what this means is that this is kind of like goes back to this triple barrier method that we explained in our documentation. But essentially, from the entry price, we define a stop loss spread, a take profit spread, and as the price moves, we also define a trailing stop spread. And finally, if neither the stop loss, the take profit, or the take profit are hit, after a certain amount of time, the trade is reversed if it hits this time limit. So what this essentially does is it ensures that every order level kind of manages its own risk, and the inventory balance should be basically the same from the starting point to the end point, because every order kind of reverses itself. So let's go ahead and see how to actually deploy, but first also backtest this strategy using Dashboard. So we have it running already. So we can just go to Chrome, which is over here, I believe. Let's stop this, go to Chrome, and then we can see how to configure the strategy. So we'll be running this on OKX, on the WorldCoin USDT trading pair. This leverage setting only applies to perpetual exchanges, so we can change that. I think we have around, I think $200 on the exchange. So let's use $100 as a total amount here. And then finally, this position mode is also only applies to perpetual exchanges. And then here for the executor refresh time, this is basically the order refresh time. Let's use 5 minutes because we'll be doing backtesting, and we want to make sure that backtesting time can finish properly. But you can also feel free to use a smaller setting as well. Here in this next section, this is where we can define the order levels on the buy side and the sell side. Recall that in the PMM script video, we did one order level on each side with a spread of 0.5%. So that would look something like this. So with one order level on each side, and with a spread of, let's say, 0.5, like that. And here also a spread of 0.5. So here, this is where we have the executor risk management settings. So by default, there's just a 5% stop loss. So that means if the order is filled, wait 5% until it kind of like stops loss on that order. Let's stick with that. The take profit's 2%. Let's do the higher take profit, perhaps. Time limit of 720 minutes, so that the position will be on the books for 720 minutes or 6 hours. Let's make that a little faster so that if the trade doesn't hit either the stop loss, take profit, or the trailing stop within 120 minutes, the trade will reverse. And we also can define a few other settings here, but we'll leave them as defaults. So one of the best features about the V2 framework is that now we can see the orders here, but we can also backtest them using historical data that we're fetching from the exchange. Now, this only works for certain exchanges, but OKX is one of them because OKX has the candles feed, which is the feature that allows for this. So we'll backtest over the last 2-day period. Importantly, we should put in a trade cost. So if by default, the maker fees on OKX, I believe, are 0.8 8 basis points. So let's use that, and we can run the backtesting. So when it's running the backtesting, you'll see the running icon here on the top right. And what it's down doing, is if the data is not available, it'll go ahead and fetch the historical data from the exchange at the resolution, and it will basically run this configuration you just defined against that data. So it's completed already. So we can see the chart here. The red arrows are positions we entered into that lost money. The green are positions we entered into that made money. And the gray over here are orders that were not filled. So we can see some summary stats. We can see that overall, this strategy, if we had been running the strategy in the last 2 days, would have done about $6,000 in volume. And it would have lost a bit of money. But overall, the P&L would have been pretty stable because the max drawdown is very close to the net P&L. And it seems like it entered into a number of different positions, 62 in particular, 29 long and 33 short. And we can see some other stats in terms of how it took profit and stop losses over here. So from this, we can make some modifications to our strategy. So let's do that before saving it and deploying it live. For one thing, we can see that most of the close types were take profits, which is good. It did hit a lot of time limits, and it didn't hit the stop loss very much. So overall, it seems like one thing we could do is increase the time limit and allow more time for the trade to settle. So let's do that and increase this to something like 360. I think we also want to enter into more trades. So let's set, instead of 1 order level, 3 order levels on each side. So let's do 3 and 3. And instead, let's do a tighter order level for spread 1. So let's say 10 basis points on either side. And then let's use something like 0.5 for level 2. And let's do 1% for level 3. So here, and let's say this is in terms of spread amount. Let's say level 2. I think let's try this, and then we'll do that. So we'll even out the amounts on each side. I think this should be even. Okay. Okay. Great. So here is another distribution of orders. We've changed a few settings, but again, we can run that back testing in order to see how this configuration would have performed. So this backtesting is probably taking a bit longer. The reason why is because we now have more order levels, so it's going to take more processing, and we're also because the more positions it enters into, the more it has to manage. So now it's finally done, and we can see that we're definitely entering into more positions. So we're doing 112 executors over this span. So the more order levels definitely helped us increase the number of fills. The total volume, I believe, was actually not that different because we were constantly inside these positions all the time. Once a position is created, it's now replacing that level with additional orders. So now we can do multiple iterations on this, but let's say we find one that we're happy with. Now we can upload this configuration to backend API. So by default, it gives it a random name and a tag. This allows you to edit it later on, but next time you can, instead of using the default configuration, pull up one of the saved ones you had saved earlier. So let's give this a better name, like OKX test, say WorldCoin USDT, and we will upload that to backend API. So now that we've uploaded this configuration for this controller, we can then use Dashboard to deploy it. So click on the Deploy V2 tab, and this is when you can deploy a configuration using backend API. So let's give it a name. Let's say test 1, and we can also select the image of Hummingbot. Here I'm using the latest master branch, but I can also use development or a custom image if I want. Here is where I select the account where my credentials are coming from. I added OKX and OKX Perpetual to the master account, but if I had added to a different account, I can select the account here. So here is the configuration that we just uploaded. We can see the name and also the base controller, the type, the pair, and some other stats to help us find it more easily. So to deploy it, just click on the name of the configuration. And so now that we have these settings up here, we can just select LaunchBot. So if you give it a few seconds, then click on the Instances tab, you should see the running instance. So this panel is basically a real-time view into the performance of your running bot. And just like the simple PMM bot, we can see the strategy that is running here. So it looks like it's already had one fill, and so it'll now do the executor for that strategy. So we can see the orders over here being placed, and we can see the orders here down here as well. So you can see that with Dashboard, now it's much easier to see the real-time performance of the bot. And if you wanted to, you can always go to the command line and inspect the bot the old-fashioned way. Here is, we type Docker PS, it gives you the list of the containers, and we can attach to the one that was just started. Here is the container ID. And then we can see that this is basically the same view that we had earlier. We can run status just like before and see the performance of the running bot itself. So I hope that gives you a view into how to run market making strategies with Hummingbot using both the traditional V1 script way as well as running the PMM simple controller using Hummingbot Dashboard. So at Hummingbot, we strive to be an open source framework that allows you to do lots of things. So hopefully we can support both the simple use cases as well as the more advanced use cases. And finally, if you follow this along, please consider taking our BotCamp educational courses in order to make the most out of Hummingbot. Over 300 students have taken our cohorts, gotten certified, and gotten jobs afterwards at hedge funds, and also started their own market-making businesses. So thank you very much, and hopefully in the next video in the series, I'll go over some more advanced strategies that you can run with Hummingbot. Great. See you next time.